I think the part that remains common ground with our story initially from 1948 is understanding the importance of helping the historically underserved community to have access to banking services.
Are you a fist bumper?
I'm a fist
Can
bumper.
we fist
Yeah.
bump? Yeah. Okay, that was a fist bump worthy moment there. Thank you for that. Good afternoon. My name is Jaquan Williams, Global Employer Brand Manager here at Nasdaq, and I have the esteemed pleasure of sitting with Michael T. Pugh, who I can't believe found time for us today. So, Michael, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jaquan. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, founded in 1948, Carver's been a trailblazer in the industry since inception, creating opportunities and overcoming obstacles. So, can you tell us about Carver's unique history and the mission of your company?
Yeah. So I think one of the most powerful things that you said is creating opportunities. And the institution itself, Carver Bank, is a classic American story.
Love that.
It was founded by a group of community leaders that saw a need. And like many Americans, we've historically saw a need for something. We've addressed it through innovation and tenacity, and then been able to deliver very high quality. And so that's the story of Carver Bank. These community leaders back in 1948 decided to get together and help provide mainstream banking solutions for people of color that actually didn't have banking services made available for them at that time. I'm sure it's kind of hard for us all to imagine in today's day and age that reality existed. But I would say that, you know, as we now have approached our 75th anniversary and very happy to still be here, the story has pivoted a bit, but the underlying premise remains the same. The pivot is in the sense that we continue to focus on being a community bank. We're hyper-local, and we want to make sure that we provide access to banking services for all. And I think the part that remains common ground with our story initially from 1948 is understanding the importance of helping the historically underserved community to have access to banking services, because in doing so, we create a tremendous opportunity for our nation to improve,
Yes.
and we thereby start to address that wealth gap issue that we all talk about. We know it continues to now affect us and from a competitive standpoint at a global level.
Are you a fist bumper?
I'm a fist
Can
bumper.
we fist
Yeah.
bump? Yeah. Okay, that was a fist bump worthy moment there.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
for that. So, Carver's working to define and build a culture that embraces value and diversity in the workforce and workforce and communities. And you can see that in certain things like your recent project with Upstart. So, can you talk more about how tech and innovation are shaping the future of financial literacy at Carver Bank?
Yeah, I think tech and innovation create an opportunity to reach a broader audience. So we're talking about scale, we're talking about efficiencies in terms of how we are actually reaching an audience, and we're meeting people where they are in their journey. So if you are on your way to work and you want to be able to get information, you can get it from your smart devices. You don't have to be in a stationary place or in one of our bank branches per se, although the services are available through those channels as well. I think the key component about leveraging fintech partners is that when you do it in a safe and sound way, there's also this tremendous ability to capture data, understand things about your customers, about how they live, work, and play in terms of hobbies and fun, and then how to build financial services and tools to ultimately help them to be able to achieve their goals. Our mission, frankly, is moving aspiration to reality, whatever those financial goals are. And the value of partnering with fintechs is that they help us to do that in a much more faster, efficient way.
So I'm going to ask a question slightly off book. Since you mentioned data, and data is one of the more important currencies, what's one of those things that you know Carver understands about the communities it serves that organizations outside the community might not grasp?
Well, so it's a great question. I think one of the key things that we understand our small business customers in a very unique way. I've often joked about the performance of our portfolio in terms of our small businesses and our loans do so well because the customers know who we are, and when you're hyper-local, the chances that you might bump into your CEO or one of the other team members leadership team members, whether it's in your grocery store or at the gym or something like that. And so the level of relationships that get created become really much more focused on a community, right? And that's the essence of when you think about when community banking was initially created, it was all done on the premise of you create transactions, you help provide services based on authentic relationships that have been established, being local and really focusing on, you can make decisions based on knowing the impact that a small business owner will make to your overall community.
So, as Nasdaq continuously strives to advance economic progress for all, we amplify the voices of our communities who have demonstrated resiliency through the years to carve this particular path forward. So, what does resiliency mean to you, and how do you cultivate it?
Yeah, I think resiliency means for us the ongoing efforts to address economic empowerment. And that's done through a number of really important ways. One is to create resources and access points for education. The ability to teach and support the learning environment for everyday Americans to better manage and understand the flow of money, how to set budgets for themselves. Those are all paradigm shifters. You heard me talk a bit earlier about moving aspiration to reality. So when you think about that first time home purchase that you want to have, or how to be able to set a budget and eventually pay off that student loan debt, any of those other critical milestones, they start with having a financial service expert that is there for you and able to help walk you through a path to ultimately achieve those goals. And so that feeds into our overall ecosystem broadly. When you think about economic empowerment, building education and then providing the resources beyond education, meaning the access to capital to often achieve your goals. Last point I'll highlight here with this is that when we consider how wealth is created in our great nation, it's ultimately created through equity or ownership of something that accretes value and is therefore passed on. And so our goal as a hyperlocal community bank is to help our customers, our communities be able to generate value in the things that they have worked so hard for and be in a position that they can ultimately pass that on for generational wealth.
Yeah. So hyperlocal seemed to be a motif in this conversation.
Yeah.
So, Michael, why is it so important for the community to invest and understand the importance of a community bank?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple things. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that while our brick and mortar footprint is hyperlocal in New York City, we're talking about, 8.6 million people. Largest city in our country, one of the largest ones in the world. So there's a lot to do here. But we're also in 9 states digitally, from Massachusetts to Virginia, including Washington, D.C. And we continue to think about how to serve broadly there. I think in parallel with the important question that you raised, what we learned just over the past couple of years, frankly, from managing through the pandemic and navigating through that, is that social capital is a very important part to ultimately helping us all be able to achieve our goals. Social capital, in my opinion, is part of that whole relationship paradigm. So as you start to think about the ability to call your banker, a person that has authority, able to make a decision and help you navigate. We found, just as an example, through one of the toughest times that we all experienced with the pandemic, we were able to support small businesses with more than $50 million in access to loans in our local communities. But the most important part about that, Jaquan, is that 5,000 jobs were preserved in our communities. And so that's what hyperlocal means to us, is because you're now providing services that ultimately help communities thrive, and that starts with relationships.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm gonna cry, because no, it's a real thing though. It's a very real thing. So this Black History Month, Nasdaq is highlighting how to amplify, educate, and invest in the development of Black professionals who continue to rewrite tomorrow. So with more than 29 years of experience as a financial expert, which 29 years of experience, thank you. What advice do you have for the next generation of innovators, creators, and entrepreneurs?
So companies that are highly successful are learning the importance of being able to hire leadership that resembles your overall customer base, right? And so you think about having leadership that models your customer base from a diversity standpoint. You think about board representation. Over the past 2 years, as an example, we've seen more women and more women of color specifically been able to obtain board seats than we've seen in the prior 15 years before then. And we think that this is also very, very important because when you consider the economic spending power, without representation of a much more diverse workforce and a much more diverse leadership at all levels of the company, how can you truly tap into the needs, the services, and the innovation aspects of what we all hope to accomplish? And I would just simply say, for our nation as well, we understand that small businesses, businesses that typically have less than 500 employees, remain a major engine for our nation's growth. And so we as community bankers have to continue to make sure that we're being a resource, providing access to capital to those new entrepreneurs and innovators that are out there and looking to get their businesses started.
Well said. Michael, thank you for finding some time in your afternoon. I appreciate all the insight.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for your time.